told Jennifer's journey a story of sacrifice and love. Jennifer stood at the airport terminal, her eyes fixed on the glass windows as planes came and went. Her heart was heavy, filled with a mixture of hope, fear, and longing. At just 25 years old, she was leaving behind her life in Mindanao to work as a domestic helper in the Middle East. Her family needed her, and she knew that this sacrifice was necessary. But deep inside, Jennifer had no idea how drastically her life was about to change. Born and raised in a small barangay in Mindanao, Jennifer grew up in a simple but loving family. Her parents were farmers, toiling under the sun every day, barely making enough to sustain their daily needs. The struggles of rural life were ever present, with the constant pressure of debts, rising costs, and the uncertainties of harvests. Still, they found joy in each other's company, in family gatherings, and in the small moments of respite they could afford. Jennifer, being the eldest of three, had always felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. After high school, she dreamed of going to college, but that was a luxury her family couldn't afford. Instead, she worked in a local eatery, saving every peso she could for her younger siblings' education. Despite her efforts, the money never seemed enough, and when her father fell ill, the medical bills pushed them further into debt. One evening, after a long day at work, Jennifer's mother sat her down. "Anak," she began, her voice heavy with emotion, "I know how hard you've been working, but we have to face reality. We can't keep going like this." Jennifer knew what her mother was leading to. For months, she had been hearing stories from neighbors and friends about Filipinas working abroad, sending home large sums of money that allowed their families to live comfortably. The thought of leaving had crossed her mind before, but she always pushed it aside, reluctant to be separated from her family. Yet, now, as she looked at her mother's tired face, she knew she didn't have a choice. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork, interviews, and farewells. Before she knew it, Jennifer found herself on a plane bound for an unfamiliar country, far from the warmth and familiarity of Mindanao. The agency had placed her with a family in a wealthy city, and while they promised her good working conditions, Jennifer knew that life as an overseas Filipino worker, OFW, would be anything but easy. Her first few weeks in the foreign land were filled with confusion and homesickness. The language was unfamiliar, the customs strange, and the people distant. The family she worked for was demanding, expecting her to be available at all hours of the day. From cleaning the large house to preparing meals, doing laundry, and taking care of the children, Jennifer barely had a moment to rest. Her body ached from the constant work, and her heart ached even more from the separation from her family. What made things harder was the isolation. Jennifer had no friends, no one to talk to. The family she worked for rarely acknowledged her beyond giving her orders, and she was often reminded of her status as the help. There were days when she felt invisible, her existence reduced to her ability to complete tasks. Yet, through it all, Jennifer held on to the hope that her sacrifices would be worth it. Every month, she sent money home, knowing that her siblings were able to continue their studies because of her. But as the months turned into years, the emotional toll of being away from home began to weigh heavily on her. She missed birthdays, holidays, and even her sister's high school graduation. She longed to be with her family, to share in their joys and sorrows, but every time she considered going home, she was reminded of the financial burden they still carried. One day, after nearly 3 years of working abroad, Jennifer received a letter from her younger brother, Miguel. He had just graduated from college and had found a job in a nearby town. The letter was filled with gratitude and love, thanking Jennifer for all her sacrifices. But as she read his words, Jennifer felt an unexpected pang of resentment. While her family was thriving, she was struggling. She had given up her own dreams and happiness for them, and while she didn't regret helping her family, she couldn't help but wonder, when would it be her turn to live? That night, Jennifer called her mother. "Ma, I miss you all so much," she said, her voice trembling. "But I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this." Her mother's response was filled with concern. "Anak, we're so proud of you. You've done so much for us. But if it's too hard, maybe it's time for you to come home." Jennifer was taken aback. For years, she had felt the pressure to stay abroad, to continue earning money for her family. But now, hearing her mother's words, she realized that maybe she didn't need to carry this burden alone anymore. A few weeks later, Jennifer made the decision to return to the Philippines. The thought of seeing her family again filled her with both excitement and anxiety. Would they understand the toll that working abroad had taken on her? Would they appreciate the sacrifices she had made? Or would they expect her to continue supporting them? The day of her return was bittersweet. As Jennifer stepped off the plane and into the warm embrace of her family, she felt a rush of relief. But as the days went by, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. While her family was grateful for the money she had sent, they didn't seem to understand the emotional and physical toll her work had taken on her. At a family dinner one night, her uncle casually mentioned that she could always go back abroad if they needed more money. The comments stung, and for the first time, Jennifer felt anger rise within her. "I'm not a money-making machine," she said, her voice shaking. "I've given up so much for this family. I missed out on years of my life. I've worked myself to exhaustion, and yet it feels like none of you understand what I've been through." Her family fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Her mother, with tears in her eyes, reached out and held Jennifer's hand. "We never meant to make you feel that way, Anak. We're so proud of you. But we also took for granted how much you've been sacrificing." For the first time, Jennifer felt heard. The conversation that followed was difficult but necessary. Her family finally understood that while the money she sent had helped them, it had come at a great personal cost. They promised her that they would never again pressure her to go back abroad unless she truly wanted to. Jennifer knew that her journey as an OFW had changed her in ways she hadn't anticipated. It had made her stronger, more resilient, but it had also taken a toll on her mental and emotional well-being. She realized that while financial support was important, it wasn't the only way she could contribute to her family. Her presence, her love, and her well-being mattered just as much. As the weeks went by, Jennifer began to heal. She found a job in her hometown, and while it didn't pay as much as her work abroad, it gave her a sense of fulfillment and belonging that she had longed for. More importantly, she was finally able to live her own life, to pursue her own dreams, and to be present for her family in ways that went beyond financial support. Looking back on her time as an OFW, Jennifer felt a deep sense of pride in what she had accomplished. But she also knew that it wasn't a path she wanted to take again. She had learned that true love for her family didn't mean sacrificing her own happiness and well-being. And in the end, that was the greatest lesson of all. Jennifer's story serves as a reminder to all families of OFWs. The sacrifices that their loved ones make abroad go beyond the money they send home. It's a life filled with challenges, isolation, and emotional pain. Families should never take for granted the struggles their relatives face and should always remember that their well-being matters just as much as the financial support they provide. Understanding, appreciation, and love are the greatest gifts they can offer in return.